Greetings, Planeteers, and welcome back. We hope you have been enjoying the channel so far, and we are excited to bring you new and fun videos for your viewing pleasure. So go ahead and subscribe to our channel, drop a like and share, and don't forget to smash that bell for alerts. Now, let's get started. This week we decided to put a video together based on one of your requests. So let me start by saying thank you to our Planeteer subscriber, M&A Controlled Chaos, for your request for us to put together a Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlett Witch video. Since our goal is to give you, our subscribers, the videos that you would like to see, this week we are going to explore one of the strongest and most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, the Scarlett Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff, and just figure out who she really is. So let's dive right in. Depending on which origin story you subscribe to, I feel like each of the origins for the Scarlet Witch tells a piece of the entire story within Marvel Comics. To this day, her origin is very convoluted. That's the problem with multiple origin stories. But at least we are in the age of the MCU and the multiverse on the big screen. Maybe all these stories will culminate as the multiverse saga unfurls on the big screen. While the Scarlet Witch is more hero than villain, her mood and intentions seem to change depending on her personal situation. Sometimes she's a hero, sometimes she's a villain, sometimes she's a little of both. The Scarlet Witch was created by Marvel Comics head writer Stan Lee and lead artist Jack Kirby, and first introduced in 1964's X-Men number 4. The original idea Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had for the Scarlet Witch was to give her the ability to alter probability. This original idea has been expanded on as Wanda became more and more powerful and popular in the comics, and by the 1980s, the Scarlet Witch has been depicted as a powerful sorceress who, on occasion, has developed the ability to alter reality by tapping into the greater energy sources of the universe. In an interview Stan Lee once gave regarding the creation and development of the Scarlet Witch and her twin brother Quicksilver, he said, "I remember that I liked Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch very much, and I thought it would be fun to have villains who aren't really bad deep down." Lee continued to say, "We already had a reluctant hero with Spider-Man, so I thought it would be fun to create a pair of reluctant villains. I had big plans for Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. I wanted them to eventually give up being villains and become heroes. That's why I used them in the Avengers after I left X-Men." Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had rich lore to draw on to introduce the Scarlet Witch. First, witches were about to get popular on TV as Bewitched premiered in 1964, and I Dream of Jeannie on the heels of Bewitched being released in 1965. So from a media standpoint, it was the perfect time to release this new character. Additionally, there has been a rich lore both in history and in the history of filmmaking that have given great attention to witches, sorcerers, and magic users. Disney got in on the magic action early, with a number of animated movies that featured witches, with classics like 1937's Snow White, which introduced the world to the evil stepmother, and 1959's Sleeping Beauty, which introduced us to Maleficent. Say that name 5 times fast. A powerful magic user that can transform herself into a fire-breathing dragon and create a castle made of thorns. In the real world, the history behind magic is long and very extensive, which has captivated and enthralled people for over 2,500 years. The first historically recorded magic act was performed by a magician named Deity in ancient Egypt in 2700 BC. His performances during this time credit him with the first cup and balls magic trick. But outside of parlor tricks performed for the masses, the ancient Egyptians also utilized magic as a resource frequently used for the journey to the afterlife. This practice can be seen in the intricate rituals of mummification, which ensured preservation of the body and soul for the afterlife. The ancient world had a lot to offer in terms of reference material and gods for Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to draw on in the development of the Scarlet Witch. One such goddess that seems to be a direct influence from both the Roman and Greek pantheon of gods was Hecate, the goddess of magic, witchcraft, the night, light, ghosts, necromancy, and the moon. Further, she was the goddess and protector of the Okios, which was the family house, and the family property. Although there are few myths about the goddess Hecate, her tales reveal a lot about her spheres of influence. During the Roman era, many of the attributes began to take on a darker idea and fell into the realm of the underworld. Now, keep in mind, during the Roman era, magic is a nebulous idea. There were practices that were commonly understood to be magic in the Roman world. Some of the most common magical practices during the Roman and imperial periods include curse tablets, binding spells, ritual incantations, enchantments, and poisons that were considered akin to magic potions. So when you look at Marvel Comics' Scarlet Witch with the benefit of time and real-world history on our side, starting with her first appearance in 1964, you can see how the lore, perceptions, and the motivations of the Scarlet Witch could have been influenced by historical reference, and also how they could have been misconstrued in the comics. So, what do I mean by misconstrued? Well, if we think about witches and how they were perceived by early Christians in Europe, they were thought of as evil beings inspiring the iconic Halloween figure. Also, within our history, magic is ancient, just like the Scarlet Witch's magic. Within the stories of the Scarlet Witch, we learn that she is a Nexus being, whose powers transcend time and continue through the generations, and Wanda Maximoff is merely this generation's Scarlet Witch. It's actually very unclear exactly when witches came onto the historical scene, but one of the earliest records of a witch is actually in the Old Testament of the Bible, in the book of 1 Samuel, which is believed to have been written between 931 BC and 721 BC. The book tells the story of King Saul seeking the witch Endor to summon the dead prophet Samuel's spirit to help him defeat the Philistine army. So in all the historical reference, there is a lot of overlap with the power of the Scarlet Witch and what she possesses eventually over time. So we can see that images of witches have appeared in various forms throughout history, from the classic evil, wart-nosed, hag-faced woman huddling over a cauldron of boiling liquid, cackling as she rides through the night sky on brooms wearing pointy hats, to a more updated pop culture version where the witch has been portrayed as a benevolent, nose-twitching housewife, or possibly an awkward teenager learning to control her powers, all the way to a trio of charmed sisters battling the forces of evil. Unfortunately, the real history of witches is dark and often deadly, as is the case with the Salem witch trials. And this is unfortunate because this is a misrepresentation of the historical witches' motives, because the early witches were people who researched and practiced healing. They were simply natural healers, or so-called wise women, whose choice of profession was quite misunderstood. Now, to be completely fair to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, while I was doing my research for this video on the history of witches and magic users, I could not find anything that could corroborate that Marvel Comics actually drew from this historical iconography as a reference for the development of the Scarlet Witch. But, coincidentally, there is a lot of overlap, and it would seem logical that this reference material would be used. So basically, my conclusion is, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below if you think Marvel drew from this rich history. So when it comes to the comics, as mentioned, the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, is one of the most powerful and well-known characters in the Marvel Universe, with multiple origin stories. Together with her brother Pietro, aka Quicksilver, at least in the 1964 origin story, they were two members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This happened after Magneto had saved Wanda from an angry mob in Eastern Europe, and both she and her brother joined Magneto's Brotherhood out of gratitude. This is when her and her brother were engaged in all of Magneto's nefarious and criminal ways. But it only took 1 year after Wanda had been launched in the comic books that her evil ways had been abandoned, and she and her brother Pietro became heroes and joined the Avengers in 1965's Avengers number 16. Now, in this origin story, after several years, Magneto actually found out that Wanda and Pietro were his biological children. This origin, however, would also be retconned when Wanda and Pietro discovered that they were not Magneto's children, or even mutants. In the retcon, they were babies, and their genes were altered by the mad scientist known as the High Evolutionary, who then returned them to their parents, deeming them a failed experiment. Now, these could be the parents that we see in the MCU feature films and the Disney Plus streaming show WandaVision as flashbacks for Wanda. It's just a theory, but it would be nice to have a start to bringing together all of these Scarlet Witch origin stories. Now, before the origin story got retconned again, the Scarlet Witch enjoyed about a couple of decades of heroics as part of the Avengers. She seemed to be on the side of justice, but that would all change thanks to the evil elder god Cthulhu. In this adaptation of the Scarlet Witch's origin story, there is a dark force lingering in Eastern Europe, inside Wundagore Mountain. It is the essence of the evil elder god Cthulhu. Now, Wundagore Mountain is located near where Wanda was born. Cthulhu observed the birth of Wanda and her brother Pietro, and infused the newborn Wanda with mystical powers. As Wanda grew, Cthulhu would manipulate these mystical powers multiple times and cause her hex powers to weaken. This was done in the hopes that she would start studying witchcraft, which she did, as she began spending time and being mentored by the witch Agatha Harkness. Cthulhu knew that he could use Wanda's powers if she became strong enough, because to him, Wanda was the perfect host for Cthulhu to possess her. Now, all of this is being done using the Darkhold, and if you have had an opportunity to see WandaVision on Disney+, that is the book that Wanda is reading from at the end of the first season to learn about dark magic or chaos magic. In the ancient past, as the elder gods like Cthulhu were being killed or banished from Earth for becoming corrupted, before Cthulhu escapes his fate, he inscribed all of his knowledge onto indestructible parchments that were bound together and became the Darkhold. Once complete, Cthulhu cast a spell over the Darkhold, allowing him to escape into a new dimension, leaving the Darkhold behind inside Wundagore Mountain to serve as a touchstone to his home. The essence of Cthulhu first targeted Wanda as a child, as he could sense her mutant abilities. This made him realize he could use her to harness the powers of chaos magic. As a cosmic being, Cthulhu was far too powerful for Wanda to overpower, and with Wanda's first encounter with the ancient Darkhold, she wreaked havoc on her fellow Avengers, before she decided to resist Cthulhu's influence and breaking free of his control. This was her first and most short-lived bout with uncontrolled darkness, but I think we can definitely chalk this one up to a straight-up possession. The next time Wanda got in touch with her evil side was after a period of extreme happiness in her life, which was in Avengers 56 in the 1990s. She married her great love, the android Vision, and they moved into the suburbs. After magically giving birth to twin boys, They retired from the Avengers to basically try and live a simple, happy family life. But soon after, Wanda lost the vision to a government experiment, and she discovered her children were not real, merely figments of her imagination come to life. Or were they? You see, the twins, named Tommy and Billy, later known in the Young Avengers as Wiccan and Speed, were created when Wanda used her magical powers to conceive the children. Little did she know that the sorcery she used to direct energy into her womb had the essence of a disseminated Faustian demon named Mephisto, who ultimately claimed the children's souls. The Vision and Scarlet Witch's relationship would never be the same again. The Scarlet Witch was broken emotionally. These tragedies made her much more unstable, which consequently led to some incredible Marvel storylines. It's storylines like this where the comics and the Disney Plus show WandaVision and the movies of the MCU start to come together to show Wanda's descent into madness. Because this is the point where Wanda really snapped. But enter Wanda's mentor, Agatha Harkness, who wiped Wanda's memory of her own children to spare her the pain of their loss and allowed her to return to the Avengers. And for a solid decade after that, Wanda was cool as a cucumber. No one really talked to her about her ever having children, nor her slipping back to the dark side. But that would all change when Wanda's fellow Avenger, the Wasp, aka Janie Van Dyne, accidentally let something slip by mistake. And that would trigger the Scarlet Witch's biggest and most dramatic turn to the dark side. In the 2004 comic Avengers Disassembled, the Wasp accidentally mentions that Wanda once had kids, which sparks a memory of the twins in Wanda. Along the way, while she's trying to figure out what the memories mean, she learns that her mentor, Agatha Harkness, had erased all of her memories of her children, and that the Avengers had been part of the secret. Do you think she got her revenge? Oh, you know she did. Now, this is a critical point in the character development of the Scarlet Witch, because not only do we see how powerful she can actually become, but what the negative results are when her rage, emotional instability, and powers are all left unchecked. As she unleashed her hex powers, Wanda altered probabilities so nearly every enemy that could attack the Avengers did attack the Avengers. Vision was torn apart, Hawkeye and Ant-Man were killed. Sensing the extreme danger to reality, Dr. Strange used the Eye of Agamotto to force her to live her worst memory and put her in a catatonic state. But this hold over the Scarlet Witch was all just a temporary fix. Eventually, Wanda emerged from her catatonia and reshaped reality to suit her needs, giving herself the life she wanted with her twin sons Tommy and Billy alive again. So let's stop right here for a second. For those that are not familiar with the comic books but have seen the show WandaVision, this was the famous House of M series in the comic books, which was the loose basis for the show WandaVision. And in the book, just like in the show, Wanda resets reality. The difference is in the comic book, as Wanda is resetting reality, she also depowers 99% of the mutant population by uttering just 3 words: "No more mutants," an event that left hundreds dead. The scope of her preeminence became such a concern that the X-Men and the Avengers debated whether they should kill her to save the planet from any further catastrophe. The Scarlet Witch has a history of villainy going back to her very first appearance, something her MCU counterpart, played by Elizabeth Olsen, just did in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. There is so much more going on with Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, that I frankly never realized. and I consider myself a Marvel Comics fan. Clearly, Wanda is an emotional person who becomes unstable as a result of trying to resurrect her children. Understandable. There is so much more story there with her. It would take a series of videos to cover it all. We didn't even cover the Doctor Doom shenanigans, where Wanda goes to Doctor Doom for help finding her missing children, and Doctor Doom, of course, has his own agenda to use the Scarlet Witch as a conduit to channel the life force within her to capture her power, which was a power that could rival the Phoenix, or the sheer manipulation power that Immortus, a variant of Kang the Conqueror, had wielded over the Scarlet Witch. So, what are your thoughts? Is the Scarlet Witch more a villain than a hero, or more a hero than a villain? That would be a fascinating discussion to have with anyone, since there is so much complexity and intricacy to the Scarlet Witch stories. So leave a comment below and let's dig into some Scarlet Witch lore. My thought is the Scarlet Witch does have an issue. I don't know if it's a blind spot, a weakness, or a willingness to want to believe in the good of people. But she has gotten manipulated a lot since she was introduced in 1964. Whether it was Magneto, Cthulhu, Mephisto, Immortus, or Doctor Doom, all of these powerful villains have found a way to manipulate and bring out the worst in her. And if I'm being completely fair, Wanda is not totally blameless here. She had opportunities to walk away before she turned reality upside down. But here's my thought on the question I asked. I think Wanda is more a hero than a villain because ultimately, regardless of how tragic or heinous her actions have been, and the consequences for those actions, she has always manipulated reality to undo the damage and tragedy that she has created, such as bringing Hawkeye and Ant-Man back to life. And despite the carnage she has caused, which she eventually walks back, corrects, and undoes all the damage she has done, which, by the way, puts her in the category of saving far more lives than she has taken. So for me, fixing all her mistakes coupled with all of her actual heroics, I would say she's more hero than villain. Whether or not she can fully be absolved of some of the things she's done, well, that's up to the reader. Now, let's see if the MCU Wanda will have a similar redemption arc. That's it for this week's video, Planeteers. We hope you enjoyed it. Please hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to smash that bell for alerts. Like I was saying, there is so much material surrounding the Scarlet Witch. We could literally make a series of videos just on this character alone. If there is something you might be interested in, just drop a comment below. Thank you all again, Planeteers, for watching this video. You can check us out on our social media sites for updates. We can be found at Twitter at Sci-Fi More, on Instagram at Sci-Fi and More, and on Facebook at Mike Cosmos Sci-Fi and More. Until next time, Planeteers, have a great galactic day.